If I told you gold will close 2026 higher than it's right now, you'd want proof, right? Good. So did I. Before making this video, I went deep, and what I found I wasn't expecting. The people who actually print money have been quietly converting their dollars into gold. 3 years straight and still so. Over 1,000 tons a year. Poland's central bank governor, we need gold for national security. National security? When the people who print money are buying gold, what do they know that you don't? To answer that, you first have to understand why most people are asking the wrong question entirely. Almost 10 years ago, I dropped out of medical school. Not because I couldn't handle it, but because I realized I was being trained to follow protocols, not to think. When I found the financial markets, I saw the exact same problem. People following lines on a screen instead of understanding what's actually going on. And that's the first mistake most beginners make with gold. They open a chart, draw a support line, draw a resistance line, and they think they are trading. They are not trading. They are guessing just with some extra steps. Let me give you a real example. October 17, 2025, gold is sitting at $4,379, all-time high, beautiful chart, clean breakout, every technical indicator screaming buy. 2 weeks later, the US government shuts down, the other agencies go dark, the Fed is flying blind. Gold doesn't care about your spot line anymore because it's reacting to something much bigger. Or take January 13th, 2026. Gold crashes around 14% in a single day, the worst since 1980s. Guess why? Kevin Marsh gets nominated as Fed chair. One political decision, one name, 14% is gone. Was that on anyone's chart? I don't think so. Here's what I learned the hard way, and it took me years. Gold is not a meme coin. Gold is not a tech stock. Gold's price is determined by decisions made in rooms you will never enter. Central bank boardrooms, Federal Reserve, the White House, the People's Bank of China. If you want to trade gold, you need to stop reading charts and start reading the room. So let me teach you how to read the room. There are 6 things that move gold's price. Think of them like a chain. When one pulls, the other follow. Number 1, money flow, which is the most important one. Demand. This is the most basic law of any market. More money coming in, price goes up. Less money, price stalls or drops. And with gold, the money flow comes from 3 places: central banks, ETF investors, and regular people buying bars and coins. In 2025, ETF inflows alone hit $77 billion. The year before, ETFs were actually losing money. People were pulling out, so when the flow reserves like that violently, from outflow to record inflow, that's a signal. Number 2, fear. There's this saying, gold is the asset you buy when you trust nothing else. War breaks out, gold goes up. Trade war escalates, gold goes up. A president threatens his own central bank, gold goes up. In 2024, it was Gaza and Iran. In 2025, it was Trump's tariff war, the government shutdown, and the criminal investigation into the Fed chair. Fear creates a premium on gold's price, and the more fear there is, the bigger that premium gets. Number 3, the cost of doing nothing. This is the one most beginners miss. When interest rates are high, your money earns something just sitting in a bank or in bonds. Gold pays you nothing, 0 yield. So there's a cost to holding gold. But when the Fed starts cutting rates, like it did 3 times in 2025, bringing rates down to 3.5%, suddenly bonds and saving accounts pay you less. The cost of holding gold drops and money starts rotating in. There's a reason gold has risen an average of 6% in the 60 days following the start of every Fed cutting cycle since the 1990s. Every single time. Number 4, the dollar. Gold is priced in dollars. When the dollar weakens, gold automatically becomes cheaper for every other country on earth. More buyers, more demand, higher price. In 2025, the dollar index dropped to about 98, a 4-year low. That's not a coincidence. That's fuel. Number 5, supply. Here is something people forget. Nobody can print gold, right? Total mine production is roughly 3,600 tons a year, and it's getting harder and more expensive to dig out every year. Meanwhile, demand is running at 5,000 tons. Do the math. When demand outstrips supply, price goes up. It's that simple. Number 6, momentum. Once gold starts moving, it attracts more buyers. ETF inflows increase, futures positioning goes long, and retail investors FOMO in. Price feeds on itself. In 2025, gold set over 53 times all-time high. This means the price pulled back again and again, and each time it set a new record. The momentum was so strong that every pullback turned into a buying opportunity, pushing it 53 times to a new record high. Now, here is what you need to understand. In 2024, maybe 2 or 3 of these were active. Gold went up 27%. In 2025, all 6 fired at the same time, and you got a 65% move. The math is simple. The more engines that are running, the harder gold moves. So only question that matters for 2026 is, how many of these 6 are still on? What happens when they start turning off? Because that's the part nobody is talking about. Let's break this down year by year so you can see exactly how the picture has evolved. I will start with the most powerful single buyer in the world, central banks. In 2022, central banks bought 1,082 tons, a record. 2023, over 1,000 again. 2024, 1,045 tons, 3 consecutive years above 1,000. Then 2025 came in at about 850 tons. Now that sounds like a slowdown, right? And some people will tell you, see, the buying is fading. Here is what actually happened. JPMorgan explains it clearly. When gold was $2,000 an ounce, central banks needed to buy a lot of tons to meaningfully change their reserve allocation. At $5,000, they need fewer tons to achieve the same dollar value. It's not that they are buying less because they've lost interest. They are buying less because each ounce now costs more. The commitment is the same. The tonnage is a mechanical adjustment. Collectively, central banks now hold 36,200 tons of gold, about 20% of their total reserves, up from 15% just 2 years ago. And for 2026, JPMorgan projects about 755 tons. State Street says it could range from 773 to over 1,100 tons. Poland just raised its target to 700 tons. Kazakhstan's governor said they want to stay a net buyer until global tensions ease. Brazil, after being dormant for 4 years, suddenly bought 43 tons in 3 months. These aren't signs of a trend ending. These are signs of a trend maturing. But central banks aren't the only force moving this market. There is one institution whose decisions ripple through every single one of those 6 factors at once: the Fed and the interest rates. 2024, one rate cut in September, the first in 4.5 years. Gold went up 27%. 2025, 3 consecutive cuts, bringing rates down from 4.75% down to 3.5%. Gold went up 65%. 2026, the market is pricing in 2 to 3 more cuts, potentially bringing rates down to 2.75% to 3% range by year end. But here is where it gets interesting. The Fed's own December projections said only 1 cut in 2026. The market is calling their bluff. With unemployment at 4.6% and job losses accelerating, most professionals believe that the Fed will be forced to cut more aggressively. That disagreement between the Fed and the market, that's volatility. And volatility in rate expectations is historically very good for gold. And one more thing, Jerome Powell's term as Fed chair ends in May. His likely successor is expected to be more dovish. A leadership transition at the most powerful central bank in the world adds another layer of uncertainty. And you already know what uncertainty does to gold. But the Fed's decisions don't stay inside the boardroom. They flow directly into something that makes gold cheaper or more expensive for the entire rest of the planet: the dollar. 2024, the XY was around 104 to 106. Strong dollar. Gold still went up, which tells you how powerful the other forces were. 2025, the XY crashed to about 98, a 4-year low. That's rocket fuel for gold. 2026, rate cuts continue, fiscal deficits are expanding, and the new Fed leadership is expected to be softer. Most forecasts see the dollar staying weak. That tailwind isn't going away. So structurally, the dollar case holds, but weak currencies and rate cuts only tell half of the story. The other half is why people are fleeing to gold in the first place. This is the wild card that keeps the fear premium alive. 2024 had Gaza and Iran-Israel tensions. 2025 escalated dramatically. Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, the 43-day government shutdown, the criminal probe into the Fed chair, the military operation in Venezuela. In 2026, the geopolitical backdrop is different but not calmer. US-China trade tensions are structural. They are not going away. The Supreme Court limited tariff Tariff Authority, which means the Treasury may need to issue more debt to cover the revenue gap. More debt means more risk premium. Europe is ramping up defense spending. Regional conflicts continue to simmer. The world isn't getting more stable. It's getting more fragmented. And guess what? Fragmentation is gold's best friend. And then there's the one piece of this story nobody was talking about at the start of 2025 until the numbers came in. ETFs and the retail demand. Here is maybe the most dramatic shift. In 2024, ETF flows were actually negative. When it was leaving, high rates made cash and bonds more attractive. Then 2025 happened, $77 billion in inflows. Over 700 tons added to ETF holdings, the biggest year on record. In Q4 2025 alone, retail-focused ETFs saw inflows of over 280 tons, more than central bank demand that quarter. Think about that. Regular investors outbought central banks. For 2026, that retail wave isn't disappearing. If anything, it's expanding. China started a pilot program allowing insurers to allocate to gold. Japan added gold ETFs to its individual savings account framework. India cut import duties. The buyer base is getting wider and deeper. Let me show you what the biggest banks in the world are saying about 2026. And I'm not going to cherry pick. I'll show you the full range. Wells Fargo just raised their year-end 2026 target to $6,100 to $6,300. Deutsche Bank, $6,000 with an alternative scenario of $6,900. UBS, $6,200 by September 2026 with upside to $7,200 in a bull case. Goldman Sachs, $5,400 by December 2026 with what they call meaningful upside risk. Societe Generale, $6,000, and they said their own forecast might be conservative. Morgan Stanley, $5,700 in their bull case. And JPMorgan says $5,055 average for Q4 2026. And I want to be honest with you, I don't fully buy it. Not because the number is wrong, but because this is their public forecast. What they tell the press and what they tell their institutional clients are rarely the same conversation. Banks manage perception as carefully as they manage positions. So take the $5,055 as the floor, not a ceiling. If you're asking where I stand, the number actually doesn't matter as much as the conditions. Each of these forecasts is just a different version of 2026, depending on how many of those 6 factors stay on. But here is the thing, and this is the whole point of this video. Whether gold hits $6,000 or consolidates at $5,000 is not the question you should be asking. The question is, are the foundations still intact? And the answer, based on everything I've just shown you, is yes. The foundations are not cracking, they are settling. What does all this mean for you practically? It means you stop looking at gold like a slot machine and start looking at it like a doctor reads a patient's vitals. The vitals are, what did the Fed do? What is the dollar doing? Did a central bank just announce a big purchase? Is there a new geopolitical escalation? Are ETF flows accelerating or decelerating? And when you see fear, government shutdown level fear, trade war level fear, central bank independence level fear, that's when gold outperforms everything else. The framework is simple. Events, not lines. If they start shutting off, if the Fed turns hawkish, if the dollar strengthens, if geopolitical tensions ease, then you wait. You don't force a trade that the macro doesn't support. Right now, on your newsfeed, there's a guy flashing a P&L screenshot. Green numbers, big accounts, fancy car in the thumbnail. Here is what he is not telling you. That P&L is either someone else's money or it's money that came easy. It didn't come from risking his own rent money the way you would. That's the difference. He can afford to be wrong, but you can't. And the cruelest part, you'll watch his P&L, you'll feel the FOMO, and you'll put your 1 month salary into a trade you don't understand, based on a signal from someone who doesn't care even if you lose it, because he already made his money from you. Trust me, you will never learn the real price of gold from someone selling you signals. You will learn it from understanding why Poland's central bank governor is losing sleep over gold reserves. You will learn it from knowing what happens to gold when the Fed cuts rates. You will learn it from watching the dollar index and knowing what it means for the metal priced in that currency. That's not magic. That's not a VIP group. That's called having bias, your own bias built from real information, from real market dynamics, from the same reports that banks charge their institutional clients millions to access. I just gave you those reports for free. I just gave you with the framework for free. The question is what you do next. You can close this video and go back to watching signals, or you can start building the one thing no guru can sell you and no market crash can take from you, your own understanding of what actually moves this market. I know which one I would choose. I made that choice almost 10 years ago when I walked out of medical school, not because I had a signal, because I understood the diagnosis.